Have we spoken about broken relationships and healthy communication tips? Maybe this is the right time. Welcome to the Embarrassing Diary. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Embarrassing Diary. I'm gonna go straight to the chase. Today I have a Gottman certified marriage coach joining our conversation, and she will be able to answer in some poignant questions: why men and women cheat, how to reconcile with your partner after a heated fight, and what are 3 tips that can help everyone succeed in their marriage. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the great pleasure to talk to Kameran Thompson. Hey Kameran, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you.
The first question I wanted to ask you is, why are divorce rates so high?
Simply lack of commitment. People, it's the idea now that, we've got social media and we've got all of these, we've got dating apps and we've got all of these things where we get into this idea that, well, my partner only has 80% of what I'm looking for. And so the grass must be greener on the other side. And so then we chase something else and we find out that the next person that we're with they have that 20% that our partner may not have had, but then they're lacking the 80% that our partner had. And so then it's, well, you're not good enough either. So let's just move on and let's move on and let's move on, because the divorce rates after the pandemic rose to 54%. That's for first marriages. For second marriages, it's even higher than that. It's like 68, something like that. And then the third marriages is in the 70s, and fourth marriages is like 80 to 90%. So, it's simply a lack of commitment.
Yeah, you're 100% right with the part that we don't commit. I feel like nowadays social media has made it look like, hey, it's so easy to find something
Because it's a highlight
else.
reel. You don't show the bad parts of yourself. You don't show like, oh, I have an alcohol problem, or I'm addicted to porn, or I'm, I have an anger issue, or I'm highly insecure and I'm super needy. Like, you may be the hottest person on the planet, but are you nice? Are you good? Are you, do you have, what are the skeletons in your closet? You don't see those on social media. We don't have perseverance anymore. We don't have endurance, and we don't value what we're building with our partner and what our partner brings to the table.
Exactly. And we don't also talk about the fact that we all have so many flaws, and relationships are filled with flaws that we need to accept and help the other person, not help them heal completely. They have to do that job themselves, but we have to accept that it's not a beautiful 100% right all the way along, like it looks superficially. So then my next question would be on the marriage part. Why do you think that people, like a lot of couples, are disconnected, and how does a healthy connection looks like?
So I think a lot of that is that we don't understand the fundamental differences between men and women. And we're just going to use heterogeneous, language here, but I primarily only work with monogamous, heterosexual couples. And the thing about marriage is that women and men are going to communicate different. They're going to connect differently. They're going to have different attachment styles. And so, and that part, the attachment style doesn't really matter whether you're a man or a woman. There is, men are typically avoidant and women are typically anxious, but it like that's a whole nother topic. But we just don't understand the fundamentals between a man and a woman. And so what happens is, and this again, this is a blanket statement, but it is generally true, that women connect through open-ended conversation. Okay. And so when we get into a relationship, we're looking for our partner to be like our girlfriends. So when, we have these conversations, and it's like, get to know me, ask me these questions. And the men are typically connecting through shoulder to shoulder friendship activities. They want you to go out and go drive with me, go play a sport with me, go do something with me. Right. And so with women, it's like, well, why aren't you asking me these questions? Why don't you get to know me? And men are like, well, I asked you those questions when we were dating, so I don't need to ask you those questions anymore. And what we don't realize is our partner is not the same as what they were a year ago, 5 years ago, before kids, like all of these things. And so we're constantly needing to get to know our partner, and we get so busy, we get
Mm.
lost in social media, in our phone, in our other priorities, that we don't have conversations with our partner on vulnerabilities. We're not meeting their emotional bids. We're not, we're basically just sharing info. Here's what the kids did today. Here's what I did today. How was your day? Great. And now we're going to bed. And so we're not having those deep conversations that we were when we were dating. Marriage and love are choices. They're not, it's not. So the idea is like, it's really fun when we're dating because it's that chase of like, can I get you to marry me? Right. But then once we get married, we're like, okay, that's it. We're good. And, now the chase is over. No, the chase has just begun because it's easy to get a partner. What's more difficult is to keep that partner. And so, yeah. And so going back to your original question of what does a healthy connection even look like? It looks like being on the same page. It looks like it's a feeling. It's a feeling of knowing that your partner respects you and values you and wants you and desires you. And it's emotional safety. It's feeling safe that if something's wrong, whether it be that somebody stole your lunch at work today, or you got a flat tire coming home, or the kids are just absolutely driving you nuts, or your partner said something that really, upset you and made you feel disrespected. Any of those scenarios that you have, you can go to your partner, and your partner's not just going to blow you off. They're going to sit down and they're going to say, I care about you. I care about the way you feel. I care about the way that you need me to show up in this relationship. I care about the relationship and I value it enough to, sit here and have this conversation with you and validate your feelings, even if I don't agree with them. So, it's more of a feeling than what it looks like.
Interesting. And why do you think a lot of couples end up cheating? Is it different for men and for women?
Not really. So not really. It comes down to one main thing. And that main thing is
Mm-hmm.
that it's validation. Okay. So and it reaches clear back to your
Mm.
childhood, which what people don't realize is that about 98% of the issues that you have in your relationship are stemming from your childhood. And so you don't work through that and
Yeah.
you don't have a secure relationship like that. What's going to happen is you're going to marry someone who triggers all of those insecurities, all of those,
Mm.
emotional wounds, all of those attachment wounds. And those are going to bubble to the surface. And so then you think, oh, my partner's terrible. My partner, like, this isn't the right partner for me. I should just get out of this relationship. And that's not necessarily true. What that means is you're actually in the right relationship. What's happening is it's a power struggle stage of the relationship, and you need to actually work through those things. So, for cheating, the emotional wound that's coming up is validation. You didn't get enough validation as a kid from one of your parents. And so what's happening then is you're looking for that. And it's the motivation behind the cheating is the same motivation of numbing out with alcohol, with porn, with drugs, with, you know, fill in the blank, right? With social media. Like whatever your choice of
Mm-hmm.
numbing out
Mm-hmm.
is, what happens is it feels good in the moment. And so we're looking for that dopamine hit. It feels good to be wanted by another person. It feels good to be, to know that you've still got it, that you're still attractive, that you're whatever. And so you're looking for
Mm.
that in other people. And those who have emotional
Mm.
damage that have not been worked through will always be promiscuous because they get that validation from other people. And so then it's an
Mm.
internal thing. So then if your partner isn't giving you the validation that you need constantly. So for example, in my marriage, um, my husband was a pilot and is a pilot. And, we got a divorce because he didn't have that validation. And so he would be away from me for 3 or 4 days on a trip. And so after like day 2, it was like, oh, I don't feel good anymore because I don't have someone touching me. I don't have someone giving me that motivation, that validation. I don't have someone, telling me that I'm so handsome or that I did a good job today or whatever. And so I'm going to look for that wherever I can get it because I need it and I need it fast. And so it's hit. It's the
Hmm.
same with drugs. You come off that high and it's like, well, now I'm at a low. And so I need a quick high again. And so same thing. It's the
Hmm.
same motivation, same principle.
So, if someone is traumatized like this to that extent that you we're talking about, can they fix
Absolutely.
it? Can they heal from it?
You
And
have to go to therapy. You have to you have to get help from someone who is trauma certified. And I would even go so far as to
Mhm.
say someone who is either somatic certified or EMDR, someone like that, where because the
Mhm.
body, you keep all of that trauma in your body. And so talk therapy is great, but you can sit there and you can talk about your problems till you're blue in the face. And it may not necessarily mean that you're getting it out of your body. And so it's stored in your joints or your back or your head or your heart or wherever it is stored in you in your reproductive organs.
Mm.
So you have to actually work all of that out of your body too. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, it's even hard, I think, especially for there specific type of men who don't
Oh,
even
for
want to
sure.
admit
For
that
sure.
they have an issue. Women too. I don't want to put it only on men, but I grew up in a culture from Greece that everything
Yep.
is very macho, whatever you would call it, like. And the men that I've grew up with, they would never admit it to themselves that,
Oh,
oh, I have an issue. I would go to a therapist to fix my relationship. It's really hard. Whereas in the Netherlands, I see it more. Men are much more open and say, "Yeah, something is not going well. We can go even on couples therapy, or I can even
sure.
check on it myself." And despite, even if there is trauma or there isn't, how can, let's say we have a relationship
Yeah.
and we have a very intense fight, right? Those good ones, the
Yeah.
ones that you hate the other
Yeah.
person for a whole day and you don't want to talk to them. So, how can you reconnect after such an intense conversation, and why
Yeah.
is it so important?
So this one is so hard as an individual when this happens because it requires you to like your ego is bruised. And you want to think, "Oh, my partner is so like that they're out to get me and they're the problem and I didn't do anything wrong." And what it takes is for you to lower your pride and to swallow your ego and for you to say, "You know what? I was wrong. And here's how I messed up
Mm,
in this." Every argument, every conflict has 2 sides. You can't argue with a wall. So, you can't, you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
it takes 2 people fueling that fire. So what happens is you both have to take some time because okay, so what happens is when you're I've said that a lot. What happens is when you're arguing, it's like this. So like you're holding up
Don't
your
worry.
hand and you've got your 4 fingers around your thumb, right? So the front here is your prefrontal cortex of your brain, okay? That's where all of your decisions are made. That's where logical thinking happens, right? So if you open that up and your thumb is what's touching the palm of your hand, right there is the amygdala, and that's where your emotional center comes from. Okay? When you get into an
Mhm.
argument like that
Mhm.
where you are just absolutely irate for a whole day, the prefrontal cortex is completely like if we were to take a CAT scan or an MRI of your brain, that would be completely gray. Like it would be dark. That would be completely shut off. The
Mhm.
outer layer of your brain is completely shut off. All right. So that's where like clear back to caveman times where you're running from a saber-toothed tiger. That's your digestion starts to slow, your heart rate speeds up, like all of your not necessary bodily functions for that moment start to shut down. Well, it also means because you're preparing
Mm.
to run, you've got to conserve that energy. So bring it back to the present tense, your partner is that saber-tooth tiger. So you're in fight or flight mode at this point. Fight, flight,
Mm.
freeze, or fawn. So We get into this fight
Yeah.
style, okay? And then we have to come out of that. That takes about 90 minutes minimum, all right? So we've had the fight. We have to take time to actually turn that outer layer of our brain back on, calm down, and then we have to start self-reflecting. How did I contribute to the argument? Did I assume? Did I have a tone? Did I, like whatever it may be, even like as normal
Definitely.
as it may be, you still have to own your part. And
Hmm.
then you go to your partner and you say, "Hey, are you ready to talk this out? Are you like, I would like to resolve this." Your partner might not be ready yet. The outer layer of their brain may not be on yet. That's okay. Give them time.
Mm. Hmm.
Anything more than about 24 hours, and you're choosing to stonewall. You're choosing to continue you know, to have the fight or to, like you're making a point and you're still in that pride, egocentric area.
Oh,
So within
wow.
24 hours, you've got to come back together. All right. So you have this conversation. Now,
Mm-hmm.
here's the reason that this is so important. Okay. If you don't repair, and a lot of couples don't, what happens is we just sweep it under the rug, we move on. Okay. Like, cool. Or
Mm.
you say, "I'm sorry." Well, I'm sorry too. But yeah, there's no
And
like,
that's
"I'm
it.
sorry for," and you don't own your part. There's no responsibility taken. There's no accountability taken there, right? So your partner is still going
Yeah.
to lay a brick of resentment. Now, whether that brick is huge or whether that brick is very thin, that brick is still getting laid. And so over time, what's going to
Mm.
happen is we build a little ledge and then we build, a huge wall. And by the time, we are married 10, 15, 20 years, we've got this massive wall between us that has no window, no door, and no access to our partner. And that's not what we want because then we're completely
Mm.
disconnected. That's when we emotionally just shut off. And that's when we're like, "You know what? I'm out. I can't do this anymore. I don't like the resentment that I feel. It's giving me, physical manifestations of emotional trauma. So we're having, all of these reactions in our body to stress that I don't like." Yeah,
It's a lot.
it's
Yeah.
huge.
And it's what you're saying is very pivotal. I agree 100%, and I see it in my inner circle with where people have been going through this circle exactly of resentment, and it's
Yeah.
always the same pattern, right? And even though we know about it, we're still so essentially
Hmm.
a huge part is our ego. And if you really think about it, it's
It
so
is.
stupid to let our ego determine our happiness, our
Yeah.
well-being, our partnership. So, what would you say from what you've seen so far are some tips we could give to our listeners to
Yeah.
thrive in their
So
marriage?
I have helped over 70 couples either create a completely different marriage because their marriage was just absolutely awful. Like we are hours from divorce kind of thing.
Mm.
Or, I've helped also couples that are like, we just don't fight well or we just don't communicate well or something like that. So, at any stage of your marriage where you're like, "You know what? We just need some help." Over 70 couples over the last
Mm.
5 years. And here's what I have learned. All right. And this is also coming from Dr. John Gottman because I'm Gottman certified. So, what Gottman
Mhm.
says and what I have found to be true is that you need three things in your marriage to really thrive. Okay. So we're going to imagine a house, if you will. All right. So you've got your house, and one wall that holds your house up is commitment, like we talked about earlier, right? 75% of divorces
Mhm.
are a
Mhm.
lack of commitment. All right. So we've got commitment. The second side
Mm.
that is going to hold your house up is trust. Okay. Are you emotionally safe? Do you lie? Do you cheat? Do you always, like thinking about all of the different levels of trust? If you said you were going to do something and you don't do it, that breaks trust. So, do you have trust in your marriage? Okay. So, we've got commitment, trust. So, our house is built. All right. If you don't have one of those, your house
Mhm.
falls. If, like, either way, right? But what fills up your house is friendship. So under the umbrella of friendship, we've got respect, we've got love, we've got safety, excuse me, and we've got connection, all of these things, right? So if you're missing one of those,
Mm.
then your house is empty. So it's like living in a house with no furniture. Okay. So if you have trust,
Mm. Yeah.
commitment, and friendship, and you're really working to cultivate all three of those, I can help you rebuild trust. Okay. One, this is an
Mm.
insane statistic, but 65% of marriages have some kind of infidelity in their marriage, whether it be like actually physically cheating or an emotional cheating. Okay. Emotional, like you build emotional connection with somebody else. So, and again, that may be through social media. An old boyfriend or an old girlfriend comes back and you start talking to them about your marital problems instead of going to your spouse about it. And then it's like, wow, this person really listens to me, or this, and so you start developing emotions and feelings for this person, but you've never actually kissed them or actually, gone ahead and been
So even that,
it
even that
is.
is considered
You know what?
infidelity.
So, and this is, I'm
Oh.
glad you asked this, because this is what is so misconstrued throughout, is like, well, I just
Mhm.
liked that girl's picture on Instagram. Okay, but why did you like that?
Exactly.
Did you like it
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
she's half naked and it makes you feel good? Like it gives you some kind of a dopamine rush to see this? Like, why are you even following this account? Okay, so why are you texting this person?
Mhm.
Why are you flirting with this person? Why are, like, if you go even that far, you're treading a very thin line to having it go even further. So 65% of
Mm.
marriages have some kind of an infidelity issue in their marriage. All right. Now, here's the amazing thing about this though.
Mm.
If it's addressed, because a lot of people, that you go back to that ego, and then we've got shame around that, right? Oh man, I know I shouldn't be doing this. I know I shouldn't be texting this person, but like it feels good. But like I also don't want my wife to find out, because I don't really want to lose my wife, because we have kids together and like all that, and I'm in trouble and like all these things.
Mm.
So I'm just gonna hide it. Okay. But if you don't, if you come clean and you say, listen, I screwed up. This is why I did it. And again, going back to that like that emotional intelligence, self awareness, here's why I screwed up. Let's get some help. 85% of couples that have one of these issues come back and say, you know what? It's the best thing that ever happened to us, because we were able to completely revamp our
Mm.
marriage and figure out what went wrong and then change it. And so they come even stronger
Yeah.
than what they were before.
Nice. That is actually very hopeful
Yeah.
to see that there is a solution. If somebody's listening right now and they're going through a hard time in the relationship, they shouldn't just be stuck and think, okay,
There's
that's it, it's
absolutely a
the end. There is
solution.
a
Yeah,
solution. There are
absolutely.
ways.
There's always a solution. It just
Yeah.
requires, so this is one of the things that I teach my couples, is intention versus impact, right? So your
Mhm.
intention can be absolute gold.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I just followed this person because we went to
Yeah.
high school together or whatever. Like that could be your intention. But what's the impact on your partner?
Mhm.
Is your partner looking at that being like, bro, your Instagram feed is nothing but naked women? Well, yeah, but I went to high school
Yeah.
with all of
Yeah.
them.
Are all from your
Okay,
high school?
and, like, I don't care, like, what's the impact? What's the impact, though? Are you ruining our marriage? Are you breaking my trust? Have I asked you to stop
Yeah.
following these people and you're still doing it? Like, what are we doing here? So, intention versus
Yeah.
impact is a
Yeah. Yeah.
really big thing. Yep.
Intention
Yeah.
versus impact. I'll write that down.
And it doesn't even have to be cheating. It can be something very
Yeah. Yeah.
small where the intention versus
Exactly.
impact comes into play. Hey, I asked you to take the trash out this
Hard.
morning and you
Mm.
completely blew me off, or you said you'd do it and you didn't do it. And it's like, yeah, I totally intended to take it out.
Yeah.
And that, like, again, intention was gold. I intended to take it out and I just completely forgot. But the impact was, yeah, but then you put more
Mm.
work on me, because now the trash has dirty diapers in it and it smells, our whole house smells to high heaven. So now I had to do it. And I actually didn't, like that was one extra thing that I had on my plate that I was really counting on you to do. So like,
Yeah, especially when you have kids and you have a huge to-do list and sometimes you feel overwhelmed that you're doing everything and the other person is not their intention that not to help you, but they're like, I'm really focusing this week at work and etc. So yes, it can pile up, and at some point you can be so overwhelmed
Yeah.
and think, okay, I'm done. Like I need you on board. I need you on the same team. I remember when we had the kid, the first thing we were fighting because a lot
Oh
with my
yeah.
partner because we were not sleeping, and that's the worst thing. And I remember at some point we said, okay, we shouldn't fight like this because
Right.
we're not in the same team right now. We're in a different team, and
Yeah.
it doesn't help anyone right now. Not
Yeah.
me, not you, not the baby. So I think our conversation is really, really helpful for a lot of people out there. I think I've asked you most of the questions that I had in mind, but I wanted to close this beautiful conversation with a question of how do you, if you have any healthy communication tips to
Yeah.
give to our listeners today?
So the first tip that I have is basic needs. So if you look at, there's a
Mm,
pyramid called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay. And the first one is
mhm.
exactly what happens when you first have a baby or, even in life. All right. You have to look at your basic needs: food, water, shelter, breathing. Okay. Sleep. All right. So looking at those, sleep, big one.
Sleep.
All
Yeah.
right. If you don't, there was one time, my ex-husband and I, we were moving and we hadn't eaten all day. We had like exerted all this energy, right? We were both starving and we were both just nitpicking each other, just absolute, just like having one of those days where we were fighting over everything. And we pulled through a burger joint because, it's America. So why not? So and right? So
I'm
we
so
pull
jealous.
through this burger joint and both of us take this huge bite of our hamburger. And then it was like, "Oh my gosh, I love you. I love you too. You're so beautiful." Like, and it was we're like, we're psychotic right now. And then that's because you're not getting your basic needs met. And so, yeah, like that is a really big deal. Like, do not start conversations when your basic needs are not met. It does not help. Okay. So that's my first
Yeah.
one. Basic needs have to be met. The second communication tip is 94% of the time, the way that a conversation starts is the way that it's going to. So if you come to your partner and you're like, you forgot to take out the trash, you meant to hurt my feelings, you blah, blah, blah. Don't even start with the word you. Because if you think about communication like a gate,
Mm,
okay? So you've got communication can either open or close, right? If you start with you, that gate is closing, your partner's building a wall, and they are not hearing one more word that you say. Now, come to them and you say, and this is the
mm,
sentence structure that I use and give to my clients is, I feel, when, because, I need. Okay. So, hey, do you have time to discuss something that really hurt my feelings this morning? Actually, babe, I'm writing this email right now. Can you give me 10 minutes? Yep. Okay. So whatever it is, okay, or yep, I've got time. What's up? And then you say, I felt really hurt this morning when you said, that yeah, XYZ, whatever.
XYZ. Yeah.
Because, and then relate that
Mhm.
back. Why do you feel that way? You know, I felt really,
Mm.
I felt really devalued this morning when you yelled at me in front of the kids, because my dad used to yell at me a lot when I was a kid. I need you to regulate yourself or pull me into a different room and
Mm.
talk to me, in a more respectful tone. Something like that. Like, it's very clear, it's
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
concise, it sets what you need, it also tells them how you feel, and, yeah, it still hurts to hear those conversations, it still sucks to be like, "Oh, man, I screwed up," but it's again, it's that ego. You've gotta put
Mm.
your ego down, and you've gotta understand that you're a human being, you're gonna mess up sometimes, and when you blow it with your partner, you repair, and you move on. Like, it's okay. It's the
Mm.
problem.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, what I'm hearing is we need to like let our egos aside. We need to listen. We need to have these difficult conversations, and we shouldn't let them aside because then they pile up, and that is the worst thing that can happen for a
Yeah.
marriage. And we need to communicate as much as possible with an
Right.
I and not a
Nailed it.
you. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
So
I'm a
good.
good student. I hope so. I hope I'm a good
A
student in
plus.
my marriage too. I really want to thank you for this beautiful conversation. Before we close up, I want to I want you to tell our listeners where they can find you, um, all of the details on what you're working at the moment.
My website is www.recognizingpotential.com. Okay. I have a podcast myself that is just Divorce Proof Marriage Podcast. And then you can find me on Instagram at divorce.proof.marriage. Facebook, I have a coaching group called Recognizing Potential that you can search and look for there. Other than that, TikTok, YouTube, all of that, you can find me in all the places at Divorce Proof Marriage.
Nice, nice. Thank you
Thank you for
so
having
much.
me.
Thank you, Kameran. If you're still here until the end, thank you so much for all your love and your support. If you want to actually show the support, you can rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, follow us on Instagram, and of course, share this episode with a fellow friend or someone who might really be interested and benefit from it. Thank you so much for everything, and see you next time.